Hola, it's Joe Partavilla, and thanks for joining me on another episode of Forbes Books Radio. I love to read books, and I'm talking real books, the ones with the pages and covers and stuff, not these fancy e-readers. Today I'm talking to the author of a powerful new book titled Hear Us Speak, Letters from Arab Women. Her name is Suzy Kanoo. She is a Bahraini businesswoman, a member of the Kanoo Group, a writer, and poet. Hello, Suzy.
Hi, Joe. How are you? Thank you for having me on.
I'm great, and thank you very much, Suzy, for taking the time. So first and foremost, I mentioned the Kanoo Group. For folks not familiar with it, can you sort of give us a little thumbnail sketch about it?
Yes, it's an very old business family in the Arabian Gulf. We are many generations old. We focus on real estate, shipping, almost everything, automotive. We focus on almost investments. We focus on a lot of projects on the island and in the Gulf. And I directly am the CEO of Khalil bin Ibrahim Kanoo, which is focusing a lot on the trading division, automotive, real estate, and investments. And I'm actually the first woman who's actually a CEO out of all of the family businesses. So I'm the first woman who made it as CEO.
Wow. Yeah, and so you talk about this company that's been around over 100 years, and you mentioned that you were the first woman leader of the family. How did that happen? You know, were there other women who either didn't have the opportunity to do so, or how did you get that opportunity?
Well, I think I was always focused. My father actually always said, I always had it in my mind that I would be part of the business. He said, you're coming in. And it was always in my mind that I was going to come in to actually work in the family business. And thinking that this is my father, which I dedicated the book to. Um, he was very liberal for that older generation. He never actually questioned the fact of me not coming in. I have other sisters, and they're amazingly wonderful sisters, but I'm the one who decided to go to work, and I'm the one who decided to prove myself. I didn't start by being a manager immediately. Obviously, I started on the floor.
They
So
didn't
I
make you the
started
president when you were
down
a
up.
teenager as your Sweet
No,
16
no, I
gift, or
wish I was. No, I did start from the ground up. And I always knew that I wanted to help my father. I wanted to help this family business grow. But I really didn't think that I was going to end up running it one day. I just thought, this is life and I'm just here to help him and hopefully I can. But I think I just fell in love with work. I just love working and I'm a natural at it. And I'm quite, I'm blessed to be quite good at business. And I just kept growing.
Suzy, I want to get into your education a little bit because, like you mentioned, you studied abroad. I mean, you went to Harvard. You've studied in multiple universities in Western countries. What was it like going from your very secular world to going to school in America and then going back? Did you experience some sort of whiplash there?
At that time, a lot of people ask that question. Yes, it is. It's not what people think. It's not a desert. We don't live in tents. We have
Right.
beautiful houses. We have, beautiful infrastructure. We do have restaurants. At that time, maybe not as many restaurants as there were in the States, obviously. But it wasn't that. It was the independence, to be frank. When all of us go abroad to study, and when we do come home, it's the independence you sort of lose. It's not living back in your country. It's the independence that when you lived alone all these years, now you have to come back and live under a parent's roof.
Suzy, I think one of the great things about your book is that it sort of pulls back the curtain on the Arab world. We're so ignorant to what's happening outside of our own bubbles, and the only news we ever hear from the Middle East is either bad news or we watch bad movies or TV shows that are inherently xenophobic. Was that one of the main reasons you decided to write this book, just so people found out what life was really like over there?
Yeah, I think I wish everyone who listens to the podcast, so I wish everyone who'd read this book would really come and visit the Arab world. It's such a beautiful part of the world, and I think if you haven't come to visit it, you really haven't seen the world. It's mysterious. It's an enigma to everyone. The deserts are beautiful, but we really don't have much desert. I mean, right now we have beautiful buildings around
Hmm.
us. Like I said in the book, our infrastructure is one of the best in the world. Our airports are, probably the nicest in the world. The biggest malls in the world are all coming in there. We have it all, actually. It's just that I wanted to write this book, I felt, to draw attention to some issues that we really need to discuss because we're afraid of discussing them. And I always wondered, why are we afraid? Whenever I bring certain subjects up, people are like, you don't need to talk about it. Just, let's keep going and moving on. But no, I want to address these subjects. It's such a beautiful part of the world. I think everything is going for us. Our leadership is so modern, and they're really modernizing, to be frank. The changes that you see in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia by the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman have been phenomenal. No one thought these changes could ever, ever, ever come. And look at them. He's leaped so many years ahead in just a year. But it's just not enough. We need a bit more. We're building the best, highest buildings in the world, but we really need to look at some legislation to empower women a bit more. And this is why I wanted to hear people's voices, women's voices, and I wanted even the people in power to listen and to see what's going on around them and how we can improve upon it. And it's a very uplifting book, by the way. I think you felt that, Joe. It's not a book that is. I'm not trying to sensationalize. In a bad way our part of the world. I'm just trying to draw a beautiful picture of it, and I'm trying to show people that we have these issues and let's discuss them openly and talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, the first line of the book is, kind of pulls you in. It says you started with the process of writing this book to make a difference. To you, what does that difference look like?
You see, I've always been, it's very weird. I know that I'm always supposed to be a businesswoman, but my other half is always very much into trying to help people. And I've always, done my own on the side, whether it's, charity organizations, and it really fulfills me. I think we can't be fulfilled unless that circle is filled, whether it's business, whether it's family, and you have to give to charity. And that part of it, I started to work on a bit more as, while I grew in business, and I started to go to refugees around the world. I just wanted to see what was going on, and I wanted to see where I can help and how I can help. So making a difference in other people's life has always been there with me, whether it's to a friend, whether it's trying to help people around me. It's always been part of my DNA. And I think I just realized it when I said, that's it. I want to write a book, and I really want to make a difference. I want to empower women. I want women to feel that this is happening. It's not just to them, and there is a way and there is hope at the end of the tunnel for women who are suffering.
So tell me how you accomplished the goal of writing this book. So it's Here to Speak, Letters from Arab Women. How did you find these women? And then how did you eventually meet them and able to get these letters and get their point of view?
Well, you know what's funny is, I have an office. Once in a while, I get interesting women coming in, and for some odd reason, people like to tell me their stories. So one or two of them started to talk about their stories, and when I listened, I was shocked. I said, I can't believe this. They look so fine and they look so happy. And then it started to hit me, and these things are very interesting. So they would tell me their stories, and I'd listen and I tried to see where I can help them. Somehow, I guess things were coming to me. And then when I talked to one woman, she'd say, come and meet my other friend. Look what's happening to her. And then all of a sudden, people started calling me up. And then I said, this is really interesting. So the book came around in that way. It was just me trying to help people and seeing, what they have gone through in life. And to be honest, I'm the one who's growing with them. It's not me helping them. It's them helping me. And I thought the only way I can help in the big picture was to write a book and draw attention so people in power can have a look and see what can we do. This is 50% of the population, if not the world, at least on my island. 50% of the population that deserve to have people respect them, and that deserve to have certain legislation that can protect them.
Suzy, I mentioned earlier how a majority of this world is ignorant to what's going on in the Arab world. And in full disclosure, I put myself in that group as well. So were the women that were featured in this book, did they ask to be anonymous? Did they have to ask for permission to speak? Tell us about the process of getting these women to open up.
Yeah, I didn't name names. One or two of them said, you can use my name. I don't care. I'm so tired. I'm tired. I need help. Say it. I've given up. And some of them said, I'm frightened. You can't use my name because I'm frightened. I could be chastised completely by my family. Even some of them actually stated that some of their family didn't even know that this was happening in their sisters' lives or in their daughters' lives. So they didn't want their name out there, but they wanted their story out there. They wanted people to hear and say, listen, this happened, so please be careful. Think twice when you take the step, whether it's marriage, whether it's working, whether it's everything. Just be careful. Whether it's a contract, read twice, read three times. So I decided in the end to have no names because, I'm not here to again, to sensationalize
Yeah.
myself or make problems. I'm here to draw attention to certain issues. So I think, and they talked freer when there
Yeah.
was no names mentioned. They talked much freer.
And Susie, just for again, forgive me for my ignorance. The word chastise, that women were afraid of being chastised by their family and the people in their community. What does that mean?
Well, the people are looking at them, and then sometimes you'll have a patriarch saying, "How dare you embarrass us and our family?" Because here, family reputation is extremely important. We still refer back to the tribal times where family reputation is extremely important. The cleaner your family reputation is, the more people are look at you in wonder and admire you. So a reputation is extremely important, which is why a lot of people hold back sometimes on being themselves and saying what they want, whether it's what they want to study. You have some artists who love art, some girls love art, but because their parents say, no, you've got to do something else. So they decide to go into architecture, or they decide to be doctors when they'd rather be artists. So yes, we still believe in listening to the patriarch of the family, and that tends to be before you're married. The patriarch tends to be your father. After you're married, it tends to be the husband, or and then if it's a sister, it tends to be her brother. It is still a patriarchal society. It's changing a bit, but it's still there.
You've mentioned the phrase better legislation. What does that mean to you?
That's a very sensitive topic, actually. I think better legislation to me is, let's just talk about something on maybe on a simpler level. If a woman's abused in a marriage, where does she go? What shelter does she go to? It's very hard for a woman to admit that she's been abused by a spouse. I mean, I think this is all around the world. I
Yeah.
can't just say it's only in the Arab world.
Right.
It's very hard for them to admit to friends, to family, that they've been abused. Where do they go? In the Western world, you have legislation. They go to police. Back home, we still have to work on it. We don't have a set law in place. We have shelters, which is good. We do have shelters. There isn't a set law that says that if you're abused, the police can come. The police does come if you call in and say that I've been abused, but there's no actual very clear law in it. It goes back to our Islamic law, and sometimes the judges are partial. So it tends to be an issue there. I think this is the main issue. What should she do? What can she do? And how can she admit? What can she do? There were a lot of cases of this when I started interviewing women. It was very sad. The other side of it was for me to see how beautiful these women were. They were so positive. They were so strong. And me, when I started writing the book, I said this in my book, I thought that I would just be, I would be sobbing and tearing the whole time, all the way till I finished the book. And the opposite happened.
Susie, one of my favorite sections from the book was the Bahraini journalist. Without spoiling it for everyone, what can you tell us about her?
She was one of the beautiful ladies who would come to me all the time. And, little did I know she had a beautiful story to tell. One day when she heard I was writing this book, she said, I want to pass by you privately tomorrow. And I said, sure, of course, come in. My door is open. So when she came in, she sat down. She said, I want to tell you my story. And I said, what story are you talking about? She said, I want to tell you my story, and I want the world to hear it. And I want the world to hear what happened to me. When she told me that story, I was just flabbergasted. I didn't name her. She didn't mind, but I didn't name her. But what a strong woman. What a strong woman. She came from a very simple family, and she overcame. It's a Cinderella story a bit, and she overcame. And it's just a beautiful story to read. But one thing I liked in the end, she said, and I've never forgotten this, she said, don't feel sorry for me. Don't feel sad for me, Susie. She said, I'm happy and I'm fine. I've made peace with what's happened to me in my life, and I'm happy and I'm perfectly fine. I just wanted you to know my story. And I just looked, and I looked at these women. We tend to admire all the time these really famous women, these famous actresses, famous people on Instagram, whatever. And yet we should be admiring women like this woman, who went through something that you probably could not even imagine going through, and sitting in front of me and smiling and laughing and telling me the world is okay. There's still some sanity left, and I'm fine. And she said something, again, I will never forget. She said, God has given you many keys in your hand. And it is up to you to decide which doors you want to open.
Hmm.
So I love that saying.
One of the words, Susie, that kept popping up in my head while I was reading the book was grace. Just the amount of grace these women have.
Yes, it's grace. It's, I'm telling you, it's beauty. It's just, it's, I wish the world would listen to them. I wish they'd hear them. I wish they'd see how beautiful women are, abused or not abused, or, they're just beautiful. Their hearts are amazingly big. I mean, look at the leaders of the world. The leaders that are women, their countries are progressing dramatically, correct? And they have empathy. They feel, they understand. Even in business, when I talk to a counterpart who's a woman who's running companies, it's different. She's got empathy. She understands the world. She understands what's needed, and she knows how to encourage her team
Mm.
because she feels it. I don't know. It's something that comes naturally to us. So yes, it's grace. It's love. It's loving their kids. It's this unconditional love to make sure that to protect their child and make sure that their child can do what they couldn't do.
Mm.
At the when I was my daughter's not going to be happy I'm saying this, but when I was writing this book, I asked my daughter Lara. I said, "Can you write me a letter?" And she said, she's 17 now, and she said, "Oh, what letter do you want me to write you?" I said, "Can you just write me a letter? I'm getting letters from different women. I'm interviewing different women. I just want to hear what you have to say, if you don't mind." So, she ignored me for a couple of days. And then on one day, I opened my email box and I saw a letter that just, I was just crying when I read it. I said, "I can't believe I did this." So, whatever you do in the house, I think children will emulate it. And I never speak to her about work much. I don't bring it up much. But what I liked what she said, "Thank you for giving me a chance to be who I want to be." She said, "We are going to change the world. This generation Z is going to change the world. We're going to change the world, and you're going to see. And I see how hard you work. You work harder than any man I know, but not getting your dues just because you're a woman. And don't worry, Mama, we're going to change the world." And in the end, she said, "Thank you for giving women who would have otherwise been shadows a chance to speak."
Yeah, I love
And
that
I was
line.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, it was just beautiful. I just read this. And then that gave me the idea actually to end the book with interviews with Generation Z. And that's why it ends with such an uplifting moment, I feel. This generation, all around the Arab world, by the way, I interviewed them all around the Arab world. This generation is extremely strong. They're independent, whether they're covered, whether they're, not covered, whether they're liberal, whether they're conservative. They have a sense of identity and pride, and nothing is going to stall them. Nothing is going to hold them back. I mean, the questions I raised to them and asked them, it didn't shock them. It didn't scare them. It didn't intimidate them. They just believed. They believed in themselves. They
Yeah.
believed in them. More than I think my generation did. My generation always felt we did have to comply a bit, no matter what. This generation says, we're going to be the best we can be, and if it comes to marriage, that's fine. But we're going to make sure that we do, we educate ourselves, we work, we focus on ourselves first. We come first, and that was very interesting.
Yeah, I love that. Now, one more thing before I let you go, Susie, is you didn't intend to include letters from men in the book, but you changed your mind when you received the note from the Arabic
Yeah,
dad, and it was a
yeah,
letter from the dad to the daughter. And there was one sentence that really got me. He goes, "Only you know what it will take to make you happy. Do not give the right to anyone else in your life." I mean, I
yes.
remember reading that, and I was just even now sort of choked up reading it. Tell us how that letter from the father came about.
I wasn't going to write anything. I wasn't going to, like you said, include anything from men right now in this book. And to be very frank, when people heard about me writing the book, even in men, I thought that a lot of them would be a bit abrasive with me, would be
Hmm.
a bit negative towards me. "Why are you doing this?" But I felt the opposite. I think things are changing. I felt the opposite because these men are all fathers at the end of the day. They do have daughters. So they do want to see a change, but I think they're not sure how to go about it,
Right.
but they would like to see a change. And this father's letter just, made me really think and understand that being a father isn't easy as well, to a daughter. It isn't easy. What should he tell her? And in the letter, when you read in the book, it's beautiful what he tells her. And yes, I think this generation understands that. To them, it is what makes them happy before what makes the man happy. And this is, I think, pivotal and important. In other words, they believe in themselves. They come first. And they're not going to be afraid to stand up and say, yes, I deserve the same salary. And if you don't give it to me, then bye-bye, thank you.
Hmm.
And I deserve this amount of dividend in the family company. And not because I'm a woman, I shouldn't get it, So I'm not afraid for this new generation. I think they will get what they want, to be frank. So I think they're going to make the change that maybe we weren't able to.
Yeah,
But yes,
us Gen
that
Xers are slackers, Susie. You know that. We let everyone else do the work, so hopefully Generation Z will take care of business.
no, they're passionate, and they're passionate, and they have no inhibitions, and I think it's good. Once you start to inhibit yourself, you just do. It comes naturally in everything in your life.
Well, Susie, I love the book, and this world could use a little more positivity, and I think this book does provide that with the stories from these women.
Yeah, I think there's so much positive back home, to be frank, and I wish people would read the book, and I hope they'll enjoy it, and hopefully there'll be a site where they can share their stories as well. I really honestly think everyone should come to my part of the world and visit.
Hmm.
It's beautiful, and yes, we need to be positive about the change that should be happening, and I think for us, we need to fight for it. This is our country. We need to fight for the change, and we need to be proud of fighting for the change, and it's happening. I mean, when I say change, the change is coming, by the way. I mean, our leaders are quite progressive and are quite young, in general. They are trying to make a change, but we need to stand up further. And you talk about 50% of the population. So we do need to stand up further and fight for the changes. Even in the Western world, the change didn't come automatically. I mean,
No.
women had to stand up and fight. And I think it's happening where I'm from. And I'm not trying to portray a negative image at all. I'm really trying to portray a positive image. And I'm trying to portray an image where it's positive. I'm trying to portray an image where, please, woman, you're worth it. Believe in yourself, stand up and make a change and listen to these stories. And as a father, listen to what could happen to you. Read the book and see what could happen to your daughter. Protect her in every avenue that you can. And as a husband, you should also understand how to respect her, which happens very often, by the way.
Yeah.
Most of most of the people here are very respectful. It's not the opposite. But yes, you will have a group that isn't, and they should be, I don't know, they should be, I guess if it's Generation Z coming, they should drive right through them and say, respect us or else.
Yeah. I was thinking in the Western world, it was more of a revolution, but correct me if I'm wrong here, but in the Middle East, it's more of an evolution, right?
Yes, you're so correct. It is an evolution, and it is happening bit by bit. I see it every day. We have more ministers as women coming. Look in our part of the world. In the Emirates, you have women ministers. In Bahrain, we've always had women ministers. In Saudi Arabia, the leap is, oh my God, dramatic. They turned around so quickly with this new crown prince. So it is happening, and it is an evolution, and they realized that that's it. Enough is enough. And don't forget, we have a right to vote as women, by the way, at the same time, simultaneously, as the men have a right to vote. So it's not that we had to fight to vote, not at all. So we should be strong enough to vote for certain things on our own as well as women.
Her name is Suzy Kanoo. The book is titled Hear Us Speak, Letters from Arab Women. Suzy, thank you very much for taking the time, and thank you very much for sharing these stories.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you all. Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you. My pleasure.
That's it for this edition of Forbes Books Radio. You can subscribe to all of our podcasts on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please, don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.
This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio. Find out more at ForbesBooksRadio.com.